All right, first tonight, let's get to this breaking news. The Washington Commanders say rookie running back Brian Robinson Jr. has been shot multiple times tonight. He's in the hospital. D.C. police say they think two juveniles tried to rob him. Thanks for staying up late with us. I am Darren Haynes. Now, this happened in Northeast in the H Street corridor tonight. It all started before 6 p.m. and our Rafael Sanchez Cruz is there at the scene of that shooting. And Rafael, walk us through, what do we need to know here?
Well, Darren, first I want to start off that we've been seeing D.C. police up and down the H Street corridor all night long following this shooting. And actually, right behind me is where the Commanders running back, Brian Robinson's suspected vehicle was parked. Now, MPD is calling the shooting a possible attempted carjacking or armed robbery that occurred just before 6 p.m. on the 1000 block of H Street Northeast. Now, according to police, the 23-year-old rookie football player was shot twice in his lower extremities and was taken to a nearby hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. D.C. police is on the lookout for two suspects. They're described as juveniles with shoulder-length dreadlocks. One of those juveniles is said to be wearing a black or brown shirt with yellow smiley faces. This happened in broad daylight when our crews were on the scene. People were dining nearby and walking around this block of the H Street corridor that is home to popular businesses like Ben's Chili Bowl. People that have been walking by saying they're upset with the gun violence in the area. And earlier today on H Street Northeast, authorities found a male adult that was located with gunshot wounds on the 1300 block at around 12:08 a.m. That's just 3 blocks from where we are now. Now, they have released a vehicle of interest in this offense. It's described as a white Toyota Camry. Now, the victim in this shooting, previous to the Robinson shooting, was taken to a local hospital, also with non-life-threatening injuries. Those are the details that we have now live in Northeast. I'm Rafael Sanchez Cruz. Darren, back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Rafael. All right, Commanders head coach Ron Rivera says in a tweet he went to the hospital to visit his players. He says Brian is in good spirits and wanted to thank everyone for their kind words, prayers, and support. Brian told Rivera he wants his teammates to know he appreciates them all for reaching out, and he and his loved ones, and will be back soon doing what he does best. Now, the Washington Commanders also released a statement asking everyone to please respect Brian's privacy. So here's what's on my mind tonight. Here we are talking about gun violence again. I was just talking to Commanders running back Brian Robinson about how the best was yet to come for his career and how this happens. Thankfully, Robinson's injuries aren't life-threatening, but gun violence is out of control in D.C., you guys. D.C. Crime Cards reports all violent crimes with a gun went up 21 incidents citywide during the past 6 months when compared to the same dates a year before. Now, we all know this isn't just a D.C. problem. It's a United States problem. Too many lives have been lost or affected because of gun violence. And yes, we can call out our local leaders, but we can also do a better job at policing ourselves and raising our people to be better.
Robinson was coming out of a business when the two teens armed with guns tried to rob him. MPD says that Robinson actually wrestled a gun away from one of the teens before being shot twice in the leg by the second suspect. The suspects ran off, jumped into a vehicle, and fled. Robinson was rushed to the hospital and is expected to make a full recovery. MPD says that it appears that the suspects are between the ages of 15 and 17 years old. This morning, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser addressed another shooting in the district, another one tied to juveniles.
Every day we're focused on how we get to young people who are disconnected, and we have our violence interrupters, credible messengers, safe passage folks, and we have outreach to families. If you know you have a young person that's involved in crime, may have access to gun, may have a gun in your home, you need to reach out to us so that we can get them some help before they hurt themselves or get hurt. But we also need young people to face consequences.
MPD says that it recovered the gun used to shoot Robinson in a nearby alley, and investigators believe that they also found the getaway vehicle, which appears to have been stolen from Prince George's County just days earlier. WUSA 9 Sports Director Darren Haynes live now from Commanders practice, where Robinson's teammates are reacting to the shooting. No doubt there's been a rallying of support around Robinson during this time, Darren.
Yeah, Larry, you know what? Head coach Ron Rivera was showing his support. He was at the hospital with Robinson yesterday. Some of his teammates, some of his friends and family were all reaching out. But this practice today was just a little bit different because Brian Robinson Jr. was not there. But first, let's get to Brian Robinson because we're hearing from him for the first time since the shooting from yesterday. And on his Instagram stories, Brian Robinson actually put out the message that surgery went well. Thanks for the prayers. God is great. Now, the positive news that you're hearing from a lot of the players and head coach Ron Rivera, that he's going to make a recovery, you know, as non-life-threatening injuries. And that's a positive note for a player that literally went through, it was a victim of gun violence that, of course, Muriel Bowser was talking about in the district area. And they had practice today. Brian Robinson was not there. And head coach Ron Rivera spoke after practice, and he was saying this is one of the toughest phone calls he ever had to receive hearing about Brian Robinson Jr.
You could feel the anger swelling up, but also the concern. And it was, you know, the conversations were, you know, really about, you know, hey, I hope he's okay. And, you know, there was a lot of worry. I texted Brian because I know he had talked to Mike. So I just texted him and he called me. And he called me to let me know he was going to be okay. So that took a lot off my mind.
It's sad, but at the same time, I was praising God because he's fine and he's going to be okay and it's not life-threatening. Situation could have played out a lot worse for him and his family, and knowing that he's going to be okay, got to give God the glory.
Now, some more news about Brian Robinson Jr. Head coach Ron Rivera says that he's going to meet with the medical staff today to see the severity on his injuries and possibly how long he could be out and when he could possibly return to the football field, because there was a lot of positive spirits. Like, that is a possibility for Brian Robinson Jr. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but head coach Ron Rivera was wearing an orange shirt during his presser. And of course, wearing orange is basically to create awareness for gun violence and to honor the victims that have been affected by gun violence. This is something the Washington Commanders have been supporting all year long, but now it hits them right at home as Brian Robinson Jr. was shot multiple times in Washington, D.C. yesterday, you guys.
Yeah, it's still hard to wrap your mind around something like this occurring, especially for someone like Robinson. I think the good news in all of this is that he's going to make a full recovery, and no doubt the city is standing firmly behind him.
To be honest with you, I thought they rallied and they practiced pretty doggone good. So I was very pleased with that. They were able to focus, and I know their hearts are heavy right now because a lot of them are still thinking about Brian. But again, as I said, you know, we're very fortunate. He's very fortunate, and a lot of the news is positive.
Coach, just describe, I know you're saying when you got that phone call, but just that from the emotions, that phone call to then getting in the car to then going to see Brian, if you can take us through that timeline.
Well, it was interesting. Got the phone call, I think somewhere around 6 o'clock, I think it was. I had actually popped into Coach Jordan's office, and irony of all ironies, we were actually watching some Brian Robinson tape. And so when it hit us, you know, and I told Coach Jordan right away, and he took it really hard initially, and, you know, he just said, is he okay? And I said, well, for the most part, it sounds like it, but we weren't sure. And so I went over to Martin's office, and we had a conversation. We got our head of security on, Mike Jacobs, who was terrific with the whole situation. You know, he was one of the first people that Brian called to let him know what was going on, and then from there, Mike went into action, and we connected with everybody on our team that needed to be connected as far as our protocols were concerned. And then in talking with everybody, I mean, you know, you could feel the anger swelling up, but also the concern. And it was, you know, the conversations were, you know, really about, you know, hey, I hope he's okay. And, you know, there was a lot of worry. I texted Brian because I know he had talked to Mike. So I just texted him and he called me. And he called me to let me know he was going to be okay. So that took a lot off my mind as far as that was concerned. But the biggest concern obviously was just making sure he was okay.
You mentioned the anger. Does that come from that this just happened on the street, or could you expand on
that? That this, you know, this continues to be a nationwide epidemic, you know, gun violence. And I think, you know, we really got to start getting to the point where we start talking about gun safety. You know, and you know, we can't make this a partisan issue. This has to be something that everybody has to work on together in our communities throughout the United States. And it can happen. It just shows you can happen anywhere. and to anybody. So it's something that we need to work on and come together to be able to solve. And again, I'm talking about gun safety.
And I know that you didn't give a timeline, but what does his recovery look like?
Really, it's just about the healing process, and then once he's well enough to get out on the field, then the doctors will have to clear him, obviously, and then we'll go from there. But like I said, everything's been very positive so far. I know he'll be seeing the doctors again today as well, and we'll just go from there. And as I said, there is no timeline.
You never think it's going to happen to someone that you know. So, and you just said that, gun violence, it's gone up in D.C. It's right in our backyard. So
I didn't say that. I said gun violence has gone up throughout the United States.
Yeah.
It's an issue here in the United States.
And so by going about that for you, now that you know that it's, happened and it's happened to one of your players, how do you make that change? What kind of change do you want to see, and how do you go about it?
Well, I just think it's about awareness. I think it's about, the community being aware, and the community really just saying enough's enough, coming together, supporting our elected officials, helping them. I mean, there's too much infighting as far as that's concerned, and the real truth of the matter is, people are dying unnecessarily, and it's crazy how we, as one of the most advanced societies in the world, continue to have this issue.
Ron, is this something where you expect him to be able to recover at home, or will he stay in the hospital? Is there any clarity on that?
That I couldn't tell you. I haven't got that much clarity yet. Like I said, I do know he has an examination today, and they're going to fill us in afterwards as to what probably the situation is in terms of his recovery.
Obviously, for all parties, the most important thing is that the young man recovers, but how do you balance that with everything happening on the football field and the machinations of rosters and such?
Well, the truth as far as the football team's concerned is we'll go on, and when he's ready and he's okay and he's fine and he gets the all clear, we'll welcome him back. But until then, we want to make sure he's healthy. He's as back to normal as he can be.
When something like this happens, how do you go about notifying the players? Did you make a point of doing that last night before them possibly hearing it in another way?
Well, it happened so quickly, and it was on social media so quickly that I actually after I got the phone call, I started getting phone calls from the players. And so I just really started telling them, hey, you guys, start sharing with your teammates. I did talk to him. He sounded pretty, optimistic and positive, considering his circumstances. And when I did finally get to see him, one of the first things he asked me to do was, and I tweeted it out just so everybody knew that he was doing okay. He asked me to let as many people know that. And so we decided, talking to Sean and our team of people, that, me tweeting something out would probably be the best way and the easiest way to get the message out.
Do you view this as sort of a crazy happenstance, or would you want to talk to your players about what it's like to be out in public, taking precautions and security measures?
Well, I know this was a happenstance because he had just gone out to get a meal, and then he was in the middle of this very unfortunate situation. So it really is just one of those things that unfortunately, probably wrong place, wrong time.
Are there any specific gun safety measures that you would support? How much thought have you been able to give to that?
Well, I just think it's really about, education. If you're going to own a handgun, then it should be about education, knowing how to properly secure it so it doesn't get stolen, how it's properly secured so the wrong people don't use it. And I do think that is, because I know when you will go for a hunting license, you have to take classes. So I just think that, gun safety is what it's about. It really truly is about making sure we all know just how important it is.
You and the team have faced a good bit of adversity since you came on here. How do you continue to kind of balance it with your players and making sure they're ready for football, but also, really understanding the life part? Well,
it's interesting because I've told you guys before, it's about focusing on what's important as opposed to what's interesting, and this is important. And that's why I'm wearing the shirt that I'm wearing today, because this is important. And to the point earlier that it really doesn't hit home till it hits home. And so you really just try to get these guys to understand that life is very precious. And you've got to make every moment of every minute and do the best you can with it. And again, there is a delineation as to what is important and what's interesting.
Just the team mentally as a whole right now, kind of where are they at? Can you describe the locker room?
It was interesting because, like I said, I talked to him before practice. I talked to him just before we practiced. And I just told him, I said, hey, do the best you can. And to be honest with you, I really did think, considering circumstances, it was a good practice. I think that they're in a good spot. I think a lot of them are relieved because I started the meeting out by telling them, hey, look, just so you all know, Brian's in a really good place. He's everybody's very optimistic about his recovery and his return. So, that I think really put a lot of their minds at ease.
Did he share any details to you about what happened in terms of, like, were they trying to get his car? Was it
Well,
just a random
the biggest
robbery?
thing as far as the details go is we got to be really careful because it's still an ongoing investigation, and so we've been, asked to limit those because without really knowing, it would be wrong to get stuff out there that's not, 100%.
How hard is it to deal with this on the day before cut day?
It is, it is difficult, because some of the meetings that, we had planned, stuff like that, we've had to delay a little bit. Some of the morning meetings, we weren't able to have yet. So once I finish here, that's probably right where I'm headed to. And then we'll start diving into that. But it did, it does interfere. But again, that's interesting right now. What's important is Brian and just making sure he's okay.
My brother texted me, and I had no idea. And then I got on Twitter, which I hate that place. But I got on Twitter and I read the report.
And, just in all the adversity you guys have faced over the last couple of years, how do you continually just try to fight through that and focus on what you need to?
It's my job. I mean, people make a big deal about the adversity that the Commanders have been facing, but at the end of the day, we're professional athletes and we get paid to play football, and that's what I'm going to do. And no matter how much adversity we deal with off the field, I'm not going to let it affect me on the field.
I was kind of going to ask you the same thing. Like, you talk about being paid to play through distraction, but does this situation, is that different than a normal distraction?
I mean, there's different levels of distractions. At the end of the day, the biggest thing is that he's safe. He's not dead, and it's not life-threatening. That's all that matters.
Do you think your teammates are able to adopt that same mindset, and kind of how would you describe the vibe of the locker room?
100%. You wouldn't be able to play at the NFL if you let distractions get to you, even though this is a very tragic and sad situation. B. Robert understands, and he'll be mad at us if we let his situation affect us. I know what kind of guy he is. I know how he would want us to go out there and play, and he's fine. He'll be back, and, we have a job to do.
He's a rookie and on the other side of the ball, but you said you know what kind of guy he is. Just how has he settled into this locker room in the first couple of months, and what kind of person is he in your eyes?
He's fit right in. He's exactly the kind of guy that we want, and that's exactly the kind of guy that we needed. We're really excited about him.
Hey, John, do you guys, when you go out in public, do you guys sometimes feel like targets just because, the wealth and all that? Do you feel like that at all?
Maybe sometimes, but for the most part, you understand what comes with the territory. For the most part, I never really felt in danger. I never really felt like a target. Obviously, I'm going to do everything I can to be smart, but sometimes bad things just happen,
And when you see that, how long before you knew that he would be okay?
As soon as I'm texting the guys around the team, talking to people close to the situation, and once I found out it was non-life threatening, that definitely made it a lot easier.
John, I know you said you get paid to deal with distractions. Does this incident, though, put football into a different perspective, or at least even for a few minutes, sort of how you think about it?
Whenever someone's life is in danger, it definitely takes football out of the equation. Once we found out he was going to be fine and his injuries were non-life threatening, and I think he's being discharged today from what I've heard, that's a good sign. So, yeah.
And just in general, it's hard to separate this, but where do you think this team is at right now mentally with a couple weeks to go to into the year?
We had a good practice today. We're ready to play football. We're ready for the season to start. You don't really know until the week 1 hits, so we'll see. But I like where we're at as a team.
John, I know you said you're paid to handle the distractions, but we're also human beings. Can you describe your emotions when your brother told you that news and then you saw on social media, wow, this is actually happening to one of your teammates?
It's sad, but at the same time, I was praising God because he's fine and he's going to be okay, and it's not life-threatening. The situation could have played out a lot worse for him and his family, and knowing that he's going to be okay, got to give God the glory.
Obviously, it's heartbreaking, but obviously there's positive news as of late and how he's doing. But, yeah, caught us all off guard yesterday, obviously, on an off day. But reached out, shot him a text right away, reached out to Coach Rivera right when I heard, and Coach kept me up to date on kind of how he was doing and after he had visited with him and went over there. So, yeah, I think it's a wake-up call to everybody, just like, there's real-life problems out there in this world, but thankfully Brian's doing well, I'm told, and look forward to seeing him.
And how do you think the team handled it in general today?
I think everyone was good. Coach Zampese also, his father passed away as well, so that was announced. Some things obviously internally, we're just praying for our guys. We're a family, and we want to keep it that way, and pray for everybody when they're going through stuff off the field and as well. And so I thought practice was good. Guys were still up tempo, all that stuff, but I think everyone definitely feels for Brian, and definitely, again, it is a wake-up call that there's a lot of things in our world that are sad and unfortunate, and things wrong in our society, and we got to all be smart.
When you hear the information that this has happened, you're obviously thinking about football all the time. Does that kind of jolt you out of that and put you in a different reality?
No doubt, it's sobering for sure. You definitely hear that news, and it's like, okay, this isn't even football anymore. Someone was shot. And this is a real life off the field thing that someone's going through. And again, we're fortunate with how he's doing. And again, that's all what I've been hearing. But things could have obviously been a lot worse. But yes, it is very real life. It takes you away from football real quick and say these are real life issues that we're all going through, and everybody we're not immune to it.
You've obviously gotten to know Brian this year. What stood out to you about him as he's kind of going through this and getting to know him as a teammate?
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun to be around. I mean, obviously we see him on the field and how he runs the ball and runs hard. But off the field, he's high energy, great dude. It's been fun getting to know him a little bit. He's opening up, coming out of his shell a little bit right now, and it's been fun to see. And so I look forward to seeing him back in here hopefully soon, and that big smile on his face, I'm sure he'll come back real quick.
Carson, thinking back to taken away from him, just describe maybe the emotions you think he's probably going through because he was anticipating playing in his first NFL game.
Yeah, again, I don't know kind of overall his state. Again, I haven't spoken directly to him, shot him a text, but I know there's a lot going on in his world. Curious how much of that he's even thinking about, quite frankly, because when this happens, like we just mentioned, a lot of football and all that kind of goes kind of to the back burner, I think. And so I'm sure there's frustration, disappointment, all that I'm sure he's feeling. He's probably feeling a lot of different emotions, but it is unfortunate, and we'll see what it means for him long term and all that stuff. I have no idea, but again, I'm excited to see him back in this building hopefully soon, and put this behind him.
With trying to focus on football now that the preseason's over, where do you guys kind of feel like you're at as an offense, and how do you kind of evaluate things?
Feel good. It's exciting. Obviously, we've put some good, some bad, some ugly out on tape, and it's not been perfect, but I think I like where we're at. I like the mindset. I like the makeup. Definitely not perfect, and we'll be building and growing as a team really every week, every time we step on the field. But the body of work we've had from OTAs, the summer, training camp, and then preseason games, I really like where we're at, and I'm optimistic.
Getting to face Jacksonville first after going through what you went through last year, are you looking forward to that, just to kind of getting out of the way? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a new team. It's a new team. Their coach, everybody's new down there, so I try not to put too much stock into that. It's week one. It's at home. There's obviously a lot of emotions everybody will be feeling. I try and put that all behind me.
We ask you a lot about your chemistry with various guys. Where are you and Logan Thomas at now that he's off the PUP list?
Feeling good. Just working through things. Everybody runs routes a little differently. Body language is always a little different, but I've also seen him on tape from really last year as I'm learning the new plays and everything, and so trying to see how he moves on tape, and I think he's looking good. And I'm excited to keep building that chemistry, but I think today was his first real team kind of reps and all that, so that'll help this week, these extra practices we get, and then into next week I think we'll be on the same page.
Preseason, your performance has been a lot of the shorter throws, not as much downfield, but Is that useful for you to see, just get the ball out quick and watch Dotson and Samuel and these guys create? And is that something you want to take into the regular season?
For sure, yeah. There'll be plenty of time for both. I think preseason, it's kind of just how it played out, but it is good. It is part of what we do, and getting the ball to these guys in space, the backs and the receivers. I think they're all dynamic with the ball in their hands, and so it's fun to see what they can do, and also just play quick, play fast. We're going to call plenty of plays to push it down the field, but it's not always going to be there. So sometimes you got to take the check down, and I'm super confident in each and everybody's ability, if I do check it down, that they're going to turn it into a big play.
I don't think we've asked you about Scott going from the booth to the sideline this year, but why has that been important throughout your career, and how have you seen him kind of make that transition?
Yeah, obviously I don't know Scott from prior, so I don't know what he's like up in the booth, but I do enjoy coming off the field and talking. Coach Zampesi's down there, the other quarterbacks, and then Scott as well. And instead of having to get on the phone and, okay, hey, what are we thinking next drive? He's right there. We can bounce ideas back and forth, and obviously limited action in the preseason, but just seeing a glimpse of that kind of operation, I think is cool. I think it's helpful for us. You'd have to ask him how he likes it, all that stuff. I don't know what it was like before, but I know he's excited to kind of be a part of the action too and feel that kind of energy and atmosphere on the sideline, which will be, I think, cool for him.
Was that important to you in college as well? I know it started in Philly, but I don't know if you had that in North Dakota as well.
That's a really good question. I've kind of seen some of both, but I love the sideline. I think you come off and you're trying, okay, what the heck were they doing? Trying to figure things out quickly, and having a set of eyes and somebody that you can talk through things and hash things out quickly, I think is really important. And I think I've seen that over my career, and I think that'll be the same here.
Going back to Brian, how did you hear, and what was kind of your immediate reaction?
Yeah, I actually heard from a group text with the O-lineman. We were texting each other, and one of the guys sent it in the group, so the topic quickly changed, and I read just the headline. I called Coach Rivera right away because I figured go straight to him. He would know best. So, yeah, that's how I heard.
And to deal with that and Ernie Zampesi and just before the start of the season, how do you personally compartmentalize all that and life and football?
Again, it is sobering, and all those things can kind of, we're so geared towards our job. Everything revolves around football, and it is our life, and we try to not, at least myself, I try to not put my identity fully in football, but you do give a lot. You give a lot, and it's mentally and physically taxing, and so to have moments like that are real life moments that aren't completely football, are completely unrelated to football, I think gives you a sense of reality and makes you realize there's a much bigger picture and there's much more important things in life. And so I think it's cool that we can kind of rally around each other, be together. We do kind of have this slower period this week until we ramp back up next week. So I think everybody can kind of hash through it on their own. And again, I think it'll be cool to get Brian back in here and around the guys. I'm sure that'll be uplifting for him, and that's because he loves this place. He loves the ball. He always comes with energy. So, yeah, I think it's always a tough thing to navigate, but it's cool that we can be around each other and be together.
I think I heard from a few of my teammates were texting me to ask that I hear about it, and I didn't really hear the specifics. And obviously, you can see it on social media what happened to him, and the first thing you were just thinking is like, is he okay? You know what I mean? Especially when you hear somebody get shot in multiple times. And B-Rob has been somebody who's come in here and he's fit in right away. Just the way his personality is infectious, the way he comes around here and excited to come to work, always asking to see what he could do better. He's been somebody I've been able to mentor a little bit. So my main concern was just, was he going to be okay? Not football at all. And, once we found that out, that it was non-life-threatening injuries, you just wanted to continue. I just started praying for him and his recovery, not just physically but mentally, his support system around him, and then just for the guys that are affecting our locker room by that. And so it's good to hear from Coach Rivera and other people that he's going to be okay and make a quick recovery. And, is very fortunate. But I know he's going to take his time to get back, and I'm just glad that he's just healthy and alive.
In the last couple of years especially, you guys have dealt with quite a bit of adversity and tragedy. As a player, how do you deal with
you can't really predict it. So it seems like situations like this are some of the things that we've been through as a team over the last couple of years, just kind of been out of nowhere, and so it's hard to just predict stuff like that that's happening. But when it does happen, we try to come together. We try to reach out to the people who are affected. I'm a big believer in prayer, so I'm a big prayer person, so I'm gonna continue to pray for those people in these situations. And life is hard. It really is, and is I think in our position where we're kind of at a higher standard and we play a kid's game but get paid a lot of money, a lot of eyes and attention on us. People kind of forget that we are still human sometimes, and things do affect us on and off the field. So we just try to support each other and be a unit as much as we can. And I think we have a great support system from our coaching staff and the other guys in this locker room. Just you got a lot of guys and resources you can lean on. I think that's really important when we're going through a lot of adversity. And just as a leader, I try to put myself in a position to make myself available to help in any way that I can.
How did you start mentoring Brian, and what are the most important things you've tried to impart to him?
I think he kind of just gravitated to me a little bit. I can't quite tell you why, but I think we sit together in a lot of offensive meetings. He's like right next to me, so he asks a lot of questions. And I remember after his first preseason game, I was just telling him to continue to compete because he had a chance to really help us this year. And he was like, "Man, I'm just trying to, I'm just helping on special teams, things like that." And that's kind of, it reminded me of myself, because you're just humble in the fact that you don't necessarily appreciate the opportunities you have in front of yourself, like to really help the team. And you're just thinking how you want to help in any way possible. That's kind of his mindset. And he's, like I say, he's very excited when he comes out to the field. And, he's a guy who comes from Alabama, and Alabama and Ohio State are a lot of similar programs. So I know he's built with toughness and trains the right way and has the right mentality coming onto the football field. But just the little things about taking care of your body, understanding it's a long season, you got to maintain your physical health, your mental health, and continue to learn. I think if you could stay on edge and continue to see how you could get better, then you'll always find yourself improving, because you never get complacent. And I think a lot of that stuff he knows, but hopefully coming from a player who's been here a little bit and has had a little bit of success, I think he gravitates to that. But I think just as a whole, he's a good human being, and he's a really great competitor. And so it's just going to be good to see his face again when he's back.
I know you never expect something like this to happen, but when you go out in public, do you ever worry that something like this could happen, or do you take extra precaution or something like that?
Yeah, honestly, I was talking to my girlfriend about it last night. You kind of think about it like, I pride myself on just being a normal human being. Like when I go out in Ashburn or in D.C., like if I'm going to go see a concert, I'm seeing it like the other people that are there. And sometimes I guess you forget, like, you're Terry McLaurin or whatever. I don't really see it as that, but other people kind of do. And I don't see myself as a target or anything like that, but it just makes me try to be more aware, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I can't, live in fear and walk around thinking something's going to happen. But at the same time, you have to be vigilant. So, I don't really go too many places, but when I do, I try to, I don't really post my locations or things like that. I kind of just go about my business. But things are happening all across the world, and it's unfortunate. You never know what can happen, so you just have to, be as precautious as possible, and have people around you that they can trust. Like I don't really go a lot of places by myself.
Following up what Nikki was asking, kind of with Ron, he's had to deal with so much. How have you seen him kind of, I guess, address Brian, and then just everything that he's kind of had to deal with?
Coach Rivera?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're trying to get a football team together to go out here and win games, and then you got final cuts, guys' lives are going to be changed in a few hours. It's a lot, you know what I mean? And can't imagine what it's like for him being the head coach, and then, things like happen off the field with Brian, and some other things that have transpired in his personal life. So I respect the way he goes about it. He's never really hung his head low or had like a pity party for himself. He's always say he has broad shoulders, and it's easy to say that, but when things start to happen to you, you really get to see the character of a person. And I think he handles it well. He tries to be as honest as he can in these situations, so the team's informed, and I think that helps us to feel like that we're in the loop as well.
Has returned. Have you noticed a difference in how he kind of conducts himself at practice, or does he exert more energy, those type of things?
I think he's always been involved. To be honest, I don't think he's changed much at all. I know he missed a few days here and there when he was going through treatments, but since he's been on the field, he's always encouraging the players and talking to us and setting the tone and the tempo for each practice and each period. And I think that's just something that's been consistent to who he's been since he's been here.
Terry, this is probably a little bit too premature because this just happened yesterday to Brian, but earlier this season, all the DC, or most of the DC sports teams got together, started wearing orange to create awareness for gun violence.
Right.
Have you thought, or maybe even had maybe some talks about what we can do more now because it's now affecting you guys directly?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really gotten that far quite yet. And, I saw Coach Rivera wearing his shirt. And, I think it's unique because we have a platform to try to get the message out even more so, and especially when it hits close to home. And I just don't think it's a DMV area. It's, across the country. There's a lot of gun violence going on, and it's unfortunate. So me personally, I don't quite know what to do. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know, but any way I could try to use my platform to bring awareness or support people in these tough situations, I'm gonna try to do that along with the other guys in our locker room. So I think that's kind of just our mind frame, and just right now, just really supporting Brian and getting him back to full recovery.
Terry, obviously a day like this puts football into perspective, but did want to ask you about that now that you've gone through camp in the offseason. How do you kind of feel that you and Carson have connected, progressed throughout?
I think it's grown a lot, especially since the first week. We're definitely connecting a lot more than we were, and I think that's good. I think you have to accumulate a certain amount of reps to start getting comfortable with quarterback and a receiver, and I think we've gotten a lot of reps this offseason, gotten some good reps in the game as well, and even the things that don't necessarily show up in the games or practice, we talk through on the sidelines or in the meetings. And I think that's really cool just to have a guy that's so communicative like he is, and he's easy to work with. And I think he's a guy that we could really continue to grow together, and not just myself, but the other guys in our room. I think he's going to continue to give us chances to make plays down the field. He gives us a chance to really, just kind of play a little bit of backyard football as well, which is, personally what I like. And, because everything is not going to quite be as clean as you want it to be. But if you can have a quarterback who's problem solving and a receiver that's problem solving, you can make the play work. And I just want to be somebody he can really trust. These situations, third down, game on the line, that he could come to me and I'm going to do my job. And that's kind of just how I've always tried to carry myself since I've been here. And it's been great working with him. It really has. And he's just a really good human being. And so it makes it easy to work with a person like that.
And back to Brian, you obviously have gotten to see him practice and play this summer. What is it when he's able to return, hopefully? What does a guy like that, what does his style do for a receiver like you? How does that help you in the offense?
Yeah, I think he has a really downhill running style. I think when he sees the hole, he hits it, and he hits it really hard. And he does a really good job of making those first defenders miss, whether with his agility or his power. He's a tough guy to tackle, and I honestly saw him when he was playing Alabama, and I was like, dang, that dude could really run the ball. And now that he's on this team, you get to see it in person. And just like I said, his enthusiasm in which he comes to practice and wants to get better and help the team. He runs with a style that I think that could really help us and possibly open up a lot of our play action game. But like I said, I think first and foremost, you just want to make sure that he's good mentally and physically whenever he does get back. And, it's great that we have the other backs in our room, JD, AG, J. Will, and the other guys who can really help us out as well and do what they've been doing before B-Rob even got here. So I think that's, I guess one plus to how things are right now.
When you talk about his personality being infectious, is he was he kind of a guy who was like JD loud, or just a quiet guy where you just could feel it more? What was his?
I think it was more so just you can feel him when he's on the field. Like when he runs the ball, when he's running through the tackles, when You're not tackling out here, but when he's making thuds against the defenders, like, you could feel him running behind his pads. And I think when you have that kind of running style, I think that wears on a defense over the course of a game. Got a young guy like himself where he could probably take 20-plus carries, and he's improved so much as a pass catcher as well. I think, when he gets back fully healthy, the sky's the limit for what he can do and how he can help this team. And, I think he helps AG as well, them two being back there with JD, being able to carry the ball and catch out the backfield. I think he just adds to another piece of weapons that we can have on this offense to be successful this year. And, like I said, I'm just looking forward to see him back healthy and smiling again. But just his personality is something that he really comes in and he's quiet, but you feel him on the field. And then you could kind of tell he's getting more comfortable and get to know guys because he's joking around and having a good time, which you love to see. And, you can honestly feel that he wasn't there today. So I think that's just one of the more indicative things when a young guy who hasn't even been here that long, you feel when he's not on the field.
That's what I was going to ask you about, how much you guys notice that, but also just when you hear that in the meeting room, what's the reaction of the team? And were you curious to see how everybody responded in practice, and how did you feel they did?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, you don't want to say we've gotten used to tragedy or things that have gone on over the last few years, but things have happened on and off the field for this team the last few years, so we've learned a lot to really take the time and appreciate what's going on, because you can't just breeze over it or just move past it because we got to play football, because again, we're human beings and it does affect our our mental and just the way it just shakes your whole day when things like that happen. But we also understand that we still have to do our job and come out here and practice hard and prepare. And I think, like I said, it starts really with Coach Rivera and how he comes and addresses us in those team meetings, kind of allows us to know what's going on and how do we move forward. He sets that standard, and then as leaders we try to echo that. And I think we have a good mix of young guys who follow the old guys and the veterans to understand that we still have to go out there and get better.
Have you had a chance to talk to Brian yet, or just text him?
I have not. No, I haven't got to talk to him yet.
And just talking about kind of his character and everything, does he kind of have that work ethic that, obviously you have an incredible work ethic. Do you see a little bit of yourself in him with that?
Yeah, he's a lunch pail guy. All the cliches, punch the clock, and he comes in here and works. And I remember looking at him. I'm sorry, that was funny though. He's just a guy that comes in and he doesn't complain, and he just works and works and works. And I know he took a lot of workload in those first 2 preseason games, and you could tell he was kind of sore, but he came out there and practiced real hard. I think you can learn a lot about a player by just off his actions, and he's not a big talker. He's an action guy, and you could tell by the way he runs the ball. You could tell by the way he practices, and you could tell by the conversations you have with him on how much he wants to help this team and get better at his craft. And he's somebody who, I know he's taking more and more ones reps, but he's still learning from JD and AG. He doesn't feel like he just got it. And I think that's something that's really important and cool to see in a young player, where they're getting more and more opportunity to run with the ones, but they're still hungry enough as if they're trying to earn that spot. So I think if he can continue to keep that mindset, he's going to be really successful.
I'll do my up-downs later. We talked about Ron and all the ups and downs he had to deal with, and I'm just wondering from your perspective, because you're one of the guys who've been here for a while now, everything that you had to face while being here, especially this year, you have the Haskins situation and now this. Like, how would you describe your emotions as they continue to go up and down here?
Yeah, I think for me, I've really benefited from seeing a therapist and talking with him, and it's allowed me to have an outlet. My family, my girlfriend, my teammates, I've really learned to lean into my support more. I think a lot of times, just people in general, it doesn't have to be athletes, you feel like you're alone, but I think also it helps to learn that you do have the support, and you just sometimes have to open yourself up to receive that support and to receive that love and that care that you need, because the more you harbor it in, the more you hold it in, it just festers up inside, and you blow up or you react in ways that are not necessarily indicative of who you are as a person or your character. And you want to try to minimize that as much as possible. But I think just understanding how empathetic we all have to be as human beings to everybody's going through something. And if you can help them in any way, I think showing that grace, showing that empathy is extremely important, because a lot of people out here really put on a brave face and they're battling the real life stuff inside. And just having that awareness as a human being has helped me continue to grow and lean into the people that I have. And I think it makes the load a lot lighter when you don't feel like you're carrying it alone. You have an outlet to where you can see yourself growing as a human being and healing from some of the things you've been through.
We know that Mr. Robinson was shot last night, just a few blocks over. Is there anything that you guys can tell us about the latest on the investigation or just the recent string of violence within the city?
Well, first of all, we know that the presence of guns in our community is making our community less safe. And MPD and all of our resources in the community are focused on how we get those guns off the street. What we saw in this case and others is just a wanton use of a firearm that hurt somebody. And so the chief can let us know on the status of the investigation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just as an update, as the mayor mentioned, again, just a reckless use of a firearm yesterday. So far, we've been making some progress in this case. We'll continue to work this investigation. We recovered a vehicle that we believe was involved. That vehicle, we're working with our partners in Prince George's County. We believe that vehicle was stolen in Prince George's County on the 26th of August, and that vehicle was recovered by MPD, or has been recovered by MPD members. We have some other evidence that we're going through, but we'll continue to work this case and making progress.
Last week it was 5 people shot on O Street. We have this, I mean, it seems like there's more of these are happening sort of in broad daylight in busy places. Should people feel safe in some of these neighborhoods?
I think people should feel safe, but when you have these types of incidents that happen in our community, certainly when these situations are reported, they make people feel less safe. When you have someone who uses a firearm in broad daylight in any of our communities, the reality is we continue to drive violent crime down our city. With respect to our ADWs in our city, we continue to drive crime down. Right now, the district is up just briefly about 3% for violent crime. Overall crime, we're at a flat 0 in comparison to where we were last year. But we want to continue to focus on these things that are making community members feel less safe. And these things like this, when you talk about people using firearms in communities, that make people feel unsafe. And we want to be there to support community members, but also lock up bad guys and hold them accountable for their actions.
Could you give us a kind of a view at this point of what happened yesterday? I mean, things have been going on, but where does it stand?
So yesterday, what happened? It appears that the victim in this case, he had just exited one of the locations on H Street. He got approached by two persons. Those persons were armed with the firearms. At some point during the course of this robbery attempt, our victim in this case began to struggle with one of the suspects, was able to actually wrestle a firearm away from one of the suspects, and he was shot twice by the second suspect. That's what we know so far. Those two suspects then ran off and jumped into a car. That vehicle, which I've reported to you, I believe that we have recovered that vehicle. So that's where we stand so far with the investigation.
The status of Mr. Robinson right now, do you know?
I'm sorry?
I said, what's the status of Mr. Robinson?
He's at the hospital recovering.
And so to be clear, Mr. Robinson fought back. Yeah, can you address that?
Hold on a second. Say it again.
Just to be clear, Mr. Robinson fought back. Can you address that again?
Yeah, when he was being robbed or attempted to be robbed at this point, he struggled with one of the suspects.
And they're juveniles, Male teenagers.
It appears that they're teenagers. What has been reported to us is that they may be between the ages of 15 and 17 years of age.
Mayor Basserman.
Nightlife teams, they're in these kind of busy areas. What capacity are they around on H Street, and also what can be done differently to prevent?
So our nightlife areas, H Street being one of them, normally they're out a little later in the evening time. As you know, they've been working the U Street corridor and so forth. We've been making some adjustments to our deployment to make sure that we have officers covering that area as well.
Where was the car found?
Which car?
The stolen car that you believe was...
It was in Prince George's County, Maryland.
Mayor,
You found it in Prince George's County?
Yeah,
again?
we found it in Prince George's County.
Mayor Bowser, may I ask a question about the fact that these are two juveniles that MPD may be looking for? The increase in juvenile violence seems to be up in D.C. Should the city be doing something different to address the rash of juvenile gun violence that's going on, or is there anything more you can do?
Well, every day we're focused on how we get to young people who are disconnected, and we have our violence interrupters, credible messengers, safe passage folks, and we have outreach to families. If you know you have a young person that's involved in crime, may have access to gun, may have a gun in your home, you need to reach out to us so that we can get them some help before they hurt themselves or get hurt. But we also need young people to face consequences. So MPD is going to locate who is responsible for this crime. At this point, we don't know who it is, but I'm confident in our detectives finding the people responsible.
And one quick follow-up on consequences. Is that part of the problem, that maybe the juveniles aren't facing enough consequences and think they can get away with it?
Well, number one, I don't know enough about this particular case to comment specifically, but we know any person, regardless of their age, who uses a gun needs clear and certain consequences.
In a broader sense, is it safe to say that the system is fully working as well as it should be, or are there gaps somewhere that is allowing
I
this
think
to-
you know and have heard me talk that all of us, government and the entire criminal justice system, needs to focus on getting fully open and making sure we're working with people that we know have used guns and will use guns to get them on a different trajectory. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.